Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches a todas y todos. Bienvenidas, bienvenidas y bienvenidos a
Good
la
morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this 10th edition of the Indigenous Women Global Leadership School. My name is Hortensia Simon, Maya Cachica from Guatemala, and it's a pleasure to lead the first part of the agenda that we have prepared for today. We're going to start, and we're going to do it with gratefulness and joy. And for that, we're going to pass the floor to our first guest. I just want to remind you to please pay attention to the following because we have interpretation for all of the participants. So please keep this in mind, keep our interpreters in mind, and please keep our cameras on so that we can see each other as we share this time. My friend Rianta is my friend Maureen Rianta is from President Grassroots from Americas in India and worked for the defense of indigenous people from India, especially for collective rights and specific rights from her state. Her work has been centered in the empowering of youth and women, focusing on strengthening their skills for their daily work and economic freedom. She participates in the global school and has been more than a decade working in her field. She also started an organization through an animation work so that children get to know their roots. This was done through a scholarship through Foundation Million, which is from the United States. She's also part of the community Montaña, which presented a movement against mining in Meghalaya before UNESCO. In 2016, she was the Indian member presenting for the Permanent Forum in New York. So I now let you, please, my friend Mayfreen Riantatiang, to continue with your remarks. Thank you so much for helping us opening this forum.
Good evening, everyone. It's good evening from India. Can you hear me? Okay. So, Hortensia. All right. So, Hortensia, thank you so much for that very generous introduction. And I can say here, I am a proud IIWF alumni of 2016. And hi, Elsa. I see many familiar faces too, and many familiar names too in this platform. But I will not take much of your time, but just basically to open the 10th edition of the International School of FIMI this year, which I do hope and I do pray sincerely from the bottom of my heart as to what else can we manifest together as indigenous women, as a collective, or generally as women of the world who wants to impact the lives of many other women and many indigenous people of the world. So I know there's a lot of you, but I just want to, before I go on to pray together with you, it would be really a humble honor if any one of you can just tell me what is it that you want to manifest from this international school? What is it that you want to imbibe into this international school amongst you, the indigenous women of the world? So you can just drop a message, 1 or 2 messages, then we can take it from there. Okay, shall we go ahead then? So before I go ahead, I would just like to show you, can you see that? This orange is what we call in our local language, kwai. And this particular leaf here, we call in a local language, tumpo. So kwai and tumpo is a betel nut and a betel leaf that has been a folk tale of many Khasis and the Jaintia people, that it is because of kwai and tumpo that we've come together as a community. It has been into our folklore. I will not get into the folklore, but it has been into a folklore that when you have kwai and tumpo, we can entertain any guests, rich or poor, from villages or from the town. So the kwai and tumpo is a representation of partnership, is a representation of a collective, irrespective of which ethnicity background you come from, which financial background or educational background you come from. So I'm praying this evening. So I'm praying this evening for this particular collective as Indigenous women. So please don't mind me. I will be praying in my own language. And I'm sorry, probably there will not be no interpretation from the language that I'm going to speak from. But believe me, it's a prayer from the heart. Atrai ku blei ku kapa ku chongi. Ngawan sa sin trai. Baginya demak mat chongi kum kinong trai. Kibayawan lang hakani kalimpung baginya wat nganya pelit ya kijingmut kijungi atrai. Banginun ra ikanu kunu kijingkala kabaya dei hawa. Isha tambor bangisha yurat ya ki hok kijungi. Na ai ngoi mi atrai banginang dan kat kini. Kinong yatrai ringkat bat ni hasatalak kaperte. Na ai ngoi ya meru atrai. Mangidan yadan lang hakani kalimpung atrai. Banginya wat chushu atrai kita kijing start kijungi atrai kumnu nganya persyak kijing tambor. Ngawan nak mat jung ni try kum ka kentei kum ka kasi bat ngeduai ru memang terdekat bat kini baru ki kentei na setelah ka pertei try kila banuan na Afrika kila banuan na Latin America kila banuan na Asia kila banuan na kenu ke benta try dan dekat bat ki yai lam ki try ke jing start try ke jong mi hi bat kam tam banyalam ki try saka thong ka bangi dei bangi nya ya lang hakani ka lumpung kat bangidang iya nang ni sakamat wanum ay try ngi ta ka jing tim but ay ngi ta ka bor but ka jing shlur bangin tur sapram kum ki kentei jong ka try muluk try chaka ngawan nak mat jong ni ta ka buram but ka msim ka pasngongo. Amen. So that's my prayer. I will just concise it, the translation of that. Basically, it's just a prayer of thanking gods of the different gods that we believe in, the gods that has brought us together into this platform as Indigenous women and as women to believe very strongly in the rights of our co-women and Indigenous people as a whole, and thanking that we still have these women who still wants to fight against any atrocities against the Indigenous people. And I pray that from this school forward, that we will move ahead with courage, fearlessly, ahead to make sure that every generation of our women still strive for better and fight against these atrocities. So thank you. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, hermana Maiperi. Y ahora, pues por esa apertura.
Thank you so much, my sister, for that opening. And now we ask this life elements to accompany us in this path that we're going to walk together. And now it is Lucy Milenka's turn, who is going to welcome us to the Indigenous Women Global Leadership School. Lucy is a Maasai woman who started as an activist, as a TV journalist in topics related to the environment and development. She is co-founder and co-president of the Indigenous Women Network on Biodiversity. Over the last few years, she has also coordinated the African region as a member of the International Forum on Biodiversity in the framework of the Convention on Biodiversity. Recognizing her work with Indigenous people, she was awarded the Environmental Work Award. She has fought for women and in Kenya, and she received the award to women from the magazine, among others. Currently, she's the president of the Organization of African Indigenous Women in the region of Africa, of Eastern Africa. She was director of the Indigenous Information Network. She's also a founder of the International Forum of Indigenous Women, and currently she is vice president. Welcome, Sister Lucy. It is your turn now.
Thank you very much, and greetings to you all. And to my seniors, Elsa and all those who are there, thank you so much, and it's great to see everyone. And I just want to open by wishing everyone who is with us, the Global School, the 10th edition, the Secretariat and all the invited guests, and also the Colombian University, who has been our partners for a very long time. Thank you all for being here, and I really, from deep my heart, welcome you. It's wonderful always to be here in the Global School. It's something that FIMI is so proud about, and it's something that also FIMI has really achieved a lot by having you as young women, even the elders who have taken this course before, have been doing quite some good work, and there have been a lot of progress, not only in your career, but also looking at Indigenous peoples and Indigenous women's work in the different regions that we've been working in. And this 10th edition is very special also because, you know, in the past, after succeeding in doing all the other editions, we've also had quite some challenges before with the COVID time and so on. And up to date, it's not really going like the plans that used to be, where you could meet face to face and be able also to do some activities again when we are all together and meeting different partners. But at the same time, this has also proved that your dedication and the dedication of the different students who have been attending the Global School have really been able to manage and advance in their careers. And I always feel very proud when I meet some of them working in different places, and you see them, and when they say they are former students of the Global School, you feel very proud about it and see how much you've learned. It's an opportunity. That's what I want to tell you also today, that it's a very great opportunity, an opportunity that we would not like anyone to lose, because it's an opportunity that also increases your opportunities in terms of getting ahead in your own work. Being able to get all the partners and all the guests that are going to talk to you on different instruments, international instruments, human rights issues, environment, development, sustainable development goals, and many, many other topics is what we really find it very, very important, because it touches on the global development. It touches and impacts on our Indigenous peoples, wherever we are, and within our own communities, and also you who are students. So it's very, very important to be keen, to learn as much as possible, to ask as many questions as possible, and also to be able to learn our partners and to learn the way we do the different work in different places. When you are chosen, you have also been working within your own community. And this is an opportunity that you are able even to discover much more from our communities, more than always what you know, and also to be inquisitive and to know more and learn more, and ask our the instructors who are going to instruct you, who are going to present, and who are going to really work with you to be able to help you advance a lot. FIMI, we also thank our partners, our donors who have been working this journey with us. And they have also found that this is a very, very important activity that we have been having in FIMI. And thanks to the Secretariat and to the Executive Director, Teresa, for really making sure this continues, and all the people that you've been putting together. The board is always very proud to see our success, and we continue supporting whatever we have. It's also good to know that normally as we work together, and as a lady who was also praying, talked about collectivity and issues that we collect. Indigenous people, we work collectively, we look at each other and we try to help each other to understand and to look at different issues that come along us. And this is very, very important because it helps us move, it helps us build not only FIMI, but your region and our Indigenous people wherever they are. So I would like really to motivate you and to really ensure that FIMI is always around to be able to help you in case there is something new that you would like to discover more. And when you are preparing your, your projects, your activities that you are going to do, we'll always be there to be able to support you. It's also very important to really thank Columbia University that has really been very, very supportive. Elsa, you've come a long, long way with us. And this has motivated even other partners to join because they still see you being there and making sure that our students really succeed. And they can be able to be proudly say that we've also attended some courses in a certain university, such as Columbia. And this helps them to even feel more confident, to feel more motivated. And that's why I really encourage them and welcome everyone to be able to do that and to be able to ask as many questions and to also learn from each other. And also Elsa will be learning from the students as much as we all learn from each other. So I think the other important thing is that we are also expecting that the work you are going to undertake and the work that you are going to do is not only going to develop you as a person, as I said, but also as communities and support the different groups at the ground level, at the community level where we work, because that's our mandate. And also it's very important to make sure that we come from the grassroots, from the lower community there, slowly to the national, to the regional, and to the international in order to make it a success. And as I said, I'm very proud of FIMI, of where we are and what the different activities we've been doing as much as possible. So if we all work collectively together, we'll be able to support our work and continue as much as possible. And also welcome all those others who are going to be presenting during this particular course, the 10th edition. I want to welcome them in advance and to also wish them all the best of luck and to wish everyone of you all the best wishes for 2023 and this particular edition, because this edition, when it succeeds, the next one will succeed. All the best wishes to everyone, and I do welcome you all, and we are proud to be here as FIMI and to make it a success. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, hermana Lucía, por esas palabras. Lucy, por esas
Thank you, Sister Lucia, for these words of encouragement. And thank you also for helping us kick off this new edition with so much hope. Professor Joseph Slaughter is next, and that's because we have Columbia University here as an allied organization. Joseph Slaughter is the executive director of the Institute for the Study of Human Rights since the summer of 2022. He's associate professor of English and comparative literature and a member of the Committee on Global Thought of the University of Columbia. He's specialized in post-colonial literature, especially that of Latin America and Africa, in international law, and socio-cultural history of the Global South. His research and teaching has been focused on the social work of literature, the diverse ways in which literature intersects formal, historical, ideological, and material literature with problems of social justice, human rights, intellectual property, and international law. He has a long history because of all of the experience he has had. He is an excellent ally from the university. We're going to look at the video that he shared with us, where he has his inaugural speech for the school this year.
Distinguished Executive Director FEMI, Ms. Teresa Zapeta,
Distinguida directora.
participants of the Indigenous Women's Global School. Since I am opening this seminar series at Columbia that is part of the Global School, I would like, first of all, to recognize the indigenous people of this land, the Lenape people, on whose traditional territories we convene today in Columbia University. I'm very happy to be here with you today to welcome for the 10th year Indigenous women leaders from the 4 directions. We could not meet in person in the last couple of years, or this year, of course, due to the pandemic. Yet thanks to the conviction that FEMI and we at the Institute for the Study of Human Rights have, and that each one of you has, you are gathering for this important program, committed to the struggle of your peoples for human rights and social justice, and to the struggle for your individual and collective rights as Indigenous women. I want to congratulate FEMI for building the Global School for Indigenous Women, which is a solid human rights program. And I congratulate all those who have been walking with FEMI in solidarity to make this possible. It has been gratifying for us at the Institute for the Study of Human Rights to be able to partner with FEMI from the beginning of our own Indigenous Peoples' Rights program. The director of that program, my colleague, Professor Elsa Stamatopoulou, has been cooperating closely with FEMI since the launch of the Global Leadership School. FEMI and our institute share a number of common goals. First of all, we share the conviction that human rights advocacy is fundamental for achieving social transformation in today's world. The adoption of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples has had major moral, legal, and political reverberations and has created a new ethos in international affairs. There is now a renewed mission for human rights defenders. As you know, Indigenous women have a big role to play in this. Indigenous women have been the foundation of their peoples, walking on the earth mother to raise generations, to give sustenance and to nurture the spirit of resistance and hope. Indigenous women were there from the beginning of the International Indigenous Peoples Movement, and a number of these leaders are also part of FEMI. Tarsila Rivera Zaya, Vicky Taudi Corpus, Myrna Cunningham, Lucy Malenke, and you are all part of FEMI. We believe that the vision of FEMI to create the global school around human rights advocacy corresponds to today's increased needs for international, intercultural, and intergenerational leadership of Indigenous women. We live in a world of unprecedented, rapid changes that pose new challenges for our world. The economic and financial crisis, the climate change crisis, the food crisis, and a context of increased extractive industry activity that threatens ecosystems and societies. And Indigenous women are among the human rights defenders increasingly being targeted with violence by states. We need the strength of Indigenous women's voices for another more holistic paradigm of a world in dignity and justice, a world that will respect Indigenous people's rights, but will also bring balance and richness to the entire world. Our institute stands for and supports human rights advocacy together with research and education. You, the participants at this 10th year of the Global School, are ambassadors of this vision for Indigenous women's human rights leadership. Thank you for bringing your voices to us, to your communities, and to the world. I wish you a fruitful seminar series at Columbia and the Global School overall. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por compartir el video.
Thank you so much for sharing the video. And this was the first speech to open up the school. And so I welcome you again to have your your cameras open. And I remind you that we have interpretation, so please go slowly when you speak. And now it's a pleasure to introduce our dear friend Elsa Estematopoulou. And we thank the universe for having her with us today. We've missed her during the last edition. We know that life is that way. Today we feel well and tomorrow we may not. That's why we value so much her work and to have her as our partner today. But more than a partner, she is a professor, a sister who teaches us. Professor Elsa Estematopoulou came to the University of Columbia in 2011, after 31 years of service in the United Nations, with 22 years dedicated to human rights, besides 8 years dedicated exclusively to the rights of Indigenous peoples. Indigenous issues were part of her work since 1983, and she was the first director of the Secretary of the Permanent Forum of the United Nations for Indigenous Issues in 2003. In 2011, she gave the first course on Indigenous peoples, and she's the first director of the program of Indigenous peoples' rights and the Institute for the Study of Human Rights at the University of Columbia. She has studied international law, justice and political sciences from the University of Vienna, Northeastern University, and the Graduate Institute of International Studies of the University of Ginebra. She has worked in the creation of human rights standards, the creation of institutions, the rights of Indigenous peoples and other groups, women's rights, cultural rights, and the development and intergovernment cooperation. She has worked with non-governmental organizations from all over the world and has received awards such as the Ingrid Washi Nawatok, El Isa Opekta Metamo Flying Eagle Woman Peace, Justice and Sovereignty Award. Also an award by the NGO Committee on the 10th year anniversary of Indigenous peoples of the world, the Eleanor Roosevelt Award, and the Award to Academic Innovation in 2016. And in that year, she was included among the 80 women, the most important women, 80 important women of the United Nations between 1945 and 2016. She's part of several councils and is also the co-president of the International Commission on Colinas de Chittagong and the IWGIA. Her research is very extensive, and she has followed a very long path. We need to take advantage of all of her knowledge and her energy, and especially being available to share with us all of her experience and knowledge. So welcome, Professor Elsa. It's a pleasure for us to have you here at this edition. I give you the floor and thank you for being here. Thank you, Sister Hortensia, for that very long and kind introduction.
Gracias. Professional relation, but it is a relation of heart and of commitment to the same ideals. So, dear sisters, dear brothers, because we have some brothers with us today, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is the 10th edition of the Global School, and we at Columbia University are very glad to cooperate with FIMI and welcome you again from all parts of the world. The director of our Institute for the Study of Human Rights, Professor Joseph Slaughter, has already spoken to you about the broad framework of the seminar series with the female women that you are here. I would like to share some words about the course methodology. One first desire we have when we prepare the seminar series is that we want the Columbia related program to be complementary to the rest of your program. We would like the whole program of the Global School to be as enriching for you as possible. The second idea we have is that we would like the program to be participatory on the part of all of you, as also our sister Lucy mentioned, because one way to do that, we were thinking sometimes, is that after each professor or each presenter makes their gives their seminar, gives their talk, you can arrange for one or two of you to be the first people who will ask specific questions and make specific comments. It would be a good way to start a dialogue with each presenter and among yourselves. Also, it's important for all of us to remember that participants, all of you, bring their own experience to the program and will be learning from each other. With this in mind, and in addition to your interactions with professors and other presenters, we hope that the program will help you link and network with each other. Third point, bibliography. We have prepared a set of readings for each lecture. The readings are available through FIMI. Of course, we understand that participants may not be able to cover the entire material during the course because you are very busy people. The bibliography is intended to serve as a supplement material for those interested also in pursuing a particular topic also after the program. So it's a kind of gift to you to use as you wish also after the program. Dear sisters, I would like to make a comment about time. We women are very concerned about time because we multitask. You are making time in your work, in your family life and social and political life for this course. We thank you for this. We thank you for placing your confidence and time in the hands of FIMI, of Columbia University, of all the professors and other speakers during these 3 months. Despite the remote nature of the seminar series this year as well, it's the 3rd time we do this remote, we believe that it is possible, and we are linking among ourselves and enlarging our family, of commitment and of advocacy and of solidarity. Despite, we know also that despite the remote nature, we have familiarized ourselves over this time with this tool, which is called Zoom or other synonyms. So we can familiarize and also demystify the Zoom and just feel that we are in one room together and connect. Let me take a couple of minutes to introduce the program. As you see from your schedule, this human rights program has several distinct elements. One, it touches broad topics such as history and Indigenous peoples' struggles, and it brings them closer to the local level, to the lives and realities of Indigenous peoples. Second, the program, of course, includes specific seminars on women's rights and Indigenous women's ways of resistance. Third distinct element, we devote specific seminars to the UN Declaration on the rights of Indigenous peoples and the 3 pillars of the Declaration: the right to self-determination, the right to lands, territories, and resources, and cultural rights. And of course, ways through which we can push for the implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And also we devote a special seminar to the so-called, to the development issues, which in Indigenous affairs, we call better well-being instead of development, right? Well-being, vivir bien, and the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the so-called development or well-being agenda until 2030 in the international community. Another distinct element is that we analyze together what the Indigenous peoples movement and Indigenous women in particular have achieved in the international fora and where the challenging points have been and how Indigenous peoples and Indigenous women have been trying to overcome the challenging points and achieving that to a large extent. And so we hope with all this thinking and planning that we do of this seminar series that you will find the program interesting and useful. You must also have noticed that we have a 2-week break in our seminar series during the annual session of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. I personally will be present in throughout the program of the course, even when I do not give seminars. I will be there with you. I want you to know that. And if you wish to have a personal discussion with me, we can arrange a Zoom, and please inform Joy about it. I would like to recognize and thank my colleagues at Columbia and outside Columbia and outside the USA for enthusiastically supporting this seminar series. It's very moving for me to see that every year. So thank you to the Executive Director of the Institute for the Study of Human Rights, Professor Joseph Slaughter. Thank you to Professors Elazar Barkan, Yasmin Ergas, and Pamela Kaya, to Chakma Chief Devashish Roy, and of course to our sisters, Joanne Carling, Tarsila Rivera, and all others who are contributing to the program. And deep appreciation on my side, and thanks to FIMI for the conviction that we share together, that each one of you matters and has a great role to play. My great appreciation to FIMI's director, Sister Teresa Zapeta. Also to the coordinator of the Global School, who is now on maternity leave, our sister Cecilia Ramirez. And also thank you to our sister Joy Patho, who has picked up the work during Cecilia's maternity leave, so we can have our program this year. Dear sisters, you are gathering for this important program from North America, Central and South America, Pacific, Asia, Africa, committed to the struggle of your peoples for human rights and social justice, to the struggle for your individual and collective rights as Indigenous women. I would like to conclude with these words: resistance, persistence, resilience, vision for life. I feel that these are words that embrace the struggles for peace, for human rights, and for human well-being. These are the Indigenous women's struggles. I really look forward to getting to know all of you. Let's all have an exciting and fruitful seminar series together. Thank you, sisters.
Muchas gracias por sus palabras.
Thank you so much for your words, Professor Elsa. We are going to remember those 4 words that are so important that you just mentioned: resistance, persistence, resilience, and vision. Also, what has been mentioned today, which is conviction and commitment. And now we're going to hear from our sister Jandy Craig. She's a member of the White Mountain Apache tribe, And she was born and raised on the Fort Apache Reservation in Arizona. She was a 2017 Indigenous Fellow at the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights in Geneva, and was a fellow of the Global Indigenous Women's Leadership. Currently, she works building restorative mental health and wellness programs on her reservation. Our sister Jandi enjoys life in a traditional ceremony is something that she does with her children through the Apache tradition. She continues to be a strong defender of Indigenous women and a great ally of our Global Indigenous Leadership School. So welcome, Sister Jandi. And the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to say some words in my Apache language. Dagota, she Jandi Craig and Schlee, Sislakai si Anandan Schlee, Jashidin Schlee, Nakaya Bunch Tea. Greetings to you all from Sislakai si An, the White Mountains of Arizona in the Southwest United States. My name is Jandi, and I am White Mountain Apache and Chicana. I'm the mother of 3 darling children, 2 boys and a girl. I am a traditional Apache godmother through ceremony for young women in my tribe. I was given the honor of supporting my goddaughters as they transition from childhood into their womanhood, attaining the sacred blessing of Istanandlashe, our first Apache mother and deity. I am a former Indigenous Fellow through OHCHR and a former FEMI scholar. I completed the UN Indigenous Fellowship with my infant daughter on my hip and completed FEMI while pregnant with my youngest son. I remember feeling challenged by having my children along with me while I learned about the various mechanisms at the UN. But my children, just as I'm sure your children, are the most important reason why we are human rights defenders. When we think about what we want for the future, it's easy to imagine, because don't we all want the world to be a better place for our little ones? Last year at the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, I facilitated a discussion at a side event about how Indigenous women are experts of the future, because we hold the future within us. When our grandmothers were pregnant with our mothers already held the ova that would produce the life we currently live. When we think about it from that perspective, our grandmothers unknowingly held the future just as we do today. Therefore, we say that Indigenous women are the experts of the future, and we are the experts of what our Indigenous communities need to thrive. We nurture our children before they are born, and of course, after they are born, for the rest of their lives. We want only the best for them, and we have the expectation that the state of the world must get better than what we are experiencing today. We are the experts at being Indigenous women, and we are the experts of what Indigenous people need. When I attended FEMI, I remember I felt energized by the ideas and projects that were shared by my fellow scholars. There were times I would hear stories from others, and I wondered how my project and concepts could possibly be as important as others. I remember asking one of my mentors about whether my ideas were even important compared to some of my fellow scholars who were facing immediate danger at home. I will never forget my mentor telling me, "This is not a competition for who is most oppressed. We are all oppressed, and we are stronger when we are standing together." Following this conversation, through prayer, a vision came to me that we are all connected in a circle through our collective trauma. My trauma may be located somewhere in the circle, while others' trauma might be in a different place of the circle, but we are still bound by the same trauma of colonization. My trauma stems from the immediate danger of my ancestors. And when that trauma is unresolved, it becomes complex and it runs through the generations, and it does not stop unless we interrupt the cycle of violence and do the best we can to dissolve it. This is why I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had through FEME. When I was a scholar, I made friends for life who I value truly as my sisters. It didn't matter if we didn't speak the same language, because we still bonded over Google Translate. Through FEME, I was able to connect with sisters from all over the globe and was given opportunities to highlight my cultural values from my tribe when I was asked to speak at different universities at the request of my FEME sisters. FEME provides such important information in order to engage the different mechanisms through the UN. If Indigenous women are the experts of the future, then FEME is the super network that helps lift ideas off the ground, even after we all return back home. And sometimes returning home after learning so much can be challenging. In my experience, there were people who questioned the relevance of providing interventions at the UN. Some people dismissed my participation at the UN by saying things like, oh, it's a slow-moving system, or the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples has no impact. But let me tell you, the Indigenous women who walked before us have laid the groundwork for us to be here in this moment. As Indigenous people, we always say we want a seat at the table where decisions are being made for us. I want you to know that FEME provides the training and opportunity to have a productive seat at the table, not only where decisions are being made for our people, but also to hold our countries accountable to the rights of Indigenous people. Sometimes people criticize this table and want it to work differently. Although I understand that sentiment, the reality is that this is the table as it currently exists. Those who came before us saw the value of sitting at this table and secured a place for us here. Now it's up to us to ensure that the voices of our communities and the needs of our people that we represent is heard and considered at this table. It is advantageous to be at the UN delivering interventions and defending human rights as experts of our Indigenous people. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is a declaration that is very powerful. If it had no impact, then why are so many countries still hesitant to adopt it? This tells us that our work is laid out for us. There are still more steps to take, that it is all worth it when we look into the faces of our children and when we promise them that we will do all we can to make the world better for them. One day, our children will not walk in our footsteps. Instead, they will run right past us and go even further because of the work we are doing for them today. I would like to pass along some of the best advice I was given as an Indigenous fellow and as a FEME scholar. When you get to the UN, introduce yourself to your member state's representative. Make sure they know you are there. Make sure they know the Indigenous people that you represent. Practice your intervention statement as much as possible. You will have limited time to speak. And like the moderator said earlier, don't speak rapidly because permanent forum members will not understand you. You will submit your written statement beforehand and they will get all the information anyway. So stay focused on the highlights of your subject. Speak slowly so that interpreters can translate. Make sure your statement is relevant to the agenda. And be impassioned, but not overly emotional. Speak to the permanent forum members so that they can feel the emotion behind your statement. I commend you for being here today and for the work you have done to get here. In the Apache way, we know that everything is balanced. For good, there is bad. For happy, there is sad. For light, there is dark. And when you experience setbacks, please know in your heart that it is an indication that something amazing is waiting for you just down the road. Do not be afraid to push further. I'm very happy to share with you that the project I presented at FEME as a FEME scholar will be accomplished in 2025. Grand projects take time, a lot of planning, and extensive fundraising. And I am very thankful for the robust network I gained through my participation at FEME, as well as the ongoing support. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share this morning. FEME holds a very special place in my heart, and I know that it will for you as well. May we always remember that no matter where we stand, we are always connected to one another because of the sacred energy that runs through our bodies, from our heads and hearts down to our feet as we stand on our beloved Mother Earth. Thank you very much, and may you encounter beauty in life today and always. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por esas.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words, for the invitation to reflection, and also for your words about what FEME means to you, especially the part of the Global Leadership School for Indigenous Women. Remember, all of these experiences accumulate. You will have more and more information. And at the end, what we want is for the realities of your territories and communities will be known at the global level. In this space of the Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples, this is a space that FEME has opened up so that your voice can be heard and so that your realities can be heard at that level. And as our sister Jandi said, they're going to give us 3 minutes to talk about that reality. And many times we get very excited, it's true. But we end up not saying what we want to say in 3 minutes. So that's part of what we deal with in our Indigenous communities at this level. We would like the Permanent Forum to know all about our realities and to have that on the table and on the debates agenda. But the important thing is you will have the opportunity to talk about the reality of your communities. It's a space for exchange of knowledge and experiences, and where many of you young leaders have the opportunity, as Sister Elsa said, to call her, to plan a meeting with her. We're going to have the whole story of the United Nations and how Indigenous peoples and women started to create a space for talking about their rights. We also have the story of Sister Lucy and all of those who have spoken today, and we can learn from them. We don't even have to read a book to hear these experiences. We can listen to them in person. And for those of us who have worked in the past editions of the school, we have seen how people have grown, and we are constantly meeting former participants and students of the Global School for Indigenous Women. We congratulate and we value that Jandy's advocacy plan is going to be implemented. We think we're going to change the world sometimes in a project of 3 or 4 months, but resistance and resilience is necessary. So her project will be approved for implementation in 2025. And on the part of the FEME team, we have quite a number of materials so that those of you who are going to participate in this 10th year of the school can find the resources that you need when you have questions, and when you find yourself going around in circles, we will always find a way out. So let's go now to a quick video that was prepared from the experiences of the participants of the school in former years, in previous years. So you will see some of the leaders from the past years, and those of you who are leaders in the 10th edition of the school will see some of what you have ahead of you. After the video, we will turn over the moderating role to Winnie, our advisor from Africa, who will continue moderating the program. It was a pleasure and an honor to me to participate in this first part. And in the second part, we have Winnie, who will moderate. So let us now look at the video of the experience of former participants. Thank you. Former participants of the Global Leadership School.
Hello and welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for again staying with us until this time. And we'll move forward to the next section of our program, where we want to welcome more guests to speak to us. And I will introduce our next guest. Her name is Monica Enriquez. She's a senior program officer at the Mesoamerican Foundation for Just Society and has been working for social and gender justice for the last 20 years, including 10 years in progressive and feminist philosophy. Monica is a queer migrant from Brooklyn, New York, who came to the US in 2001. I was granted asylum in 2006 and has deep roots in the Andean mountains of Colombia. Monica holds a bachelor's degree in international relations and a master of arts, a fine arts in digital arts and new. Monica believes in the power of grassroots movements, in activism, arts, and activism as a tool to imagine and create a more just world, and in interdependence as a way to heal and sustain our communities and planet. So I'd like to welcome Monica to give us her address. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches a todas. Mi nombre es
Thank you,
Mónica.
Winnie. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Mónica Enriquez. Pardon me.
Es de veras un gran honor
It
para
is a
mí.
great pleasure for me to be here and to share this space with you and to learn more about the Global School. And I thank FEMI for inviting us to this opening. FJS, it's a private organization based in New York committed to gender justice and racial justice. We have 4 regional programs that include Mesoamerica, Franco-speaking Africa, South Asia, and Southern United States. And we also have a global program that FEMI participates in. We seek to answer to the priorities of activists and the movements that we support. That means we don't impose our own agendas. And we are committed to supporting women, Indigenous women leadership, Black, LGBTQ, and young women. And we support with flexible and long-term funds. We have supported FEMI's work since 2018, but I have really admired the work that FEMI does since long before, because it's a global referent. And it's a unique organization, very strategic, which works at various levels, including international advocacy, financial support, and other programs to strengthen leadership, including this global school. It has been a unique space that has helped increase the number of Indigenous women who are leaders of advocacy strategies, and they have transformed the human rights international arena, and which I think would have not been possible without this school. We also learn from how FEMI has included language justice, intersectionality, and promoting the leadership of young women, as well as the way we work, which is collectively, but in a global way. As we know, racism and colonialism are present in our daily lives, and they're also present in the philanthropic arena. And while feminists and other movements in general don't receive that many funds internationally, the people who fight for injustices receive even less funding. I'll give you some examples. Just 1% of financing from human rights foundations were destined to women and children, Indigenous women and children. And between 0.1% and 0.35% of donations from these foundations, and only 5% from human rights were destined to Black and trans Black women and children and girls all over the world. So it's a minuscule amount of funds dedicated to them. And since 2020, more attention has been paid to racial equality and decolonization in the philanthropic and developmental arena. The dialogue is taking place with good long-term changes in financing. So last year we started developing from our organization. This year we decided to move forward two objectives for the next 9 years. The first one is to convince other donors to join us to increase the global financing towards organizations and feminist movements that are led by the communities that are mostly impacted by injustices, such as Indigenous women and Black women, because they are experts in their realities, as Jandy Craig just reminded us. They're also developing strategies that have the power to transform our societies. The second objective is to convince other donors to contribute to global financing in order to protect and have collective care. We are very proud that our leadership has decided to make this work a priority, to educate other donors on racism and injustices, and the importance of supporting the leadership of Indigenous women leaders. I think that we hope to do this work, continue doing this work with FIMI and many others who have been doing this work since long ago. And to all of you, participants of the Global School, thank you for your commitment, your leadership, and helping us dream of a more just and free world, because without you, philanthropy would not make any sense. So we need you, and we need the work you're doing, so we benefit mutually, and we learn from the work that you're doing and the doors that you're opening. And in order to build all of us a world where we can all live well and with dignity, as Francia Marquez would say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica. And we're always very grateful to have organizations like FDS who have been allies to Indigenous women for a long time, and we continue to build upon those relationships. And before I move forward, I just realized that I did not introduce myself in case anyone does not know me. My name is Winnie Kodi. I am a noble woman from Sudan, and as others have said before me, I am a proud alumni of the Global Leadership School. I was there on the first cohort, and it's been a great journey for me, not just as an Indigenous woman, but also to just see the Global School grow over the last 10 years. And so I'm excited, and I am proud to be in this space with all of you, to learn from you and to learn from each other. So yes, thank you. Our next guest is Moss Flores. Moss has had 15 years of substantial experience in the human rights development and humanitarian work through program management and coordination, research and education, lobbying, advocacy, and networking. He has worked for over 10 years at the UN and other international organizations in Geneva and in the Asia Pacific region in various capacities. He He has a solid academic and professional background in international law and human rights, and in-depth knowledge and understanding of the existing human rights and humanitarian norms, policies, guidelines, and institutional mechanisms, and is currently serving as Human Rights Officer, UN Voluntary Fund of Indigenous Peoples at Geneva. Moss has been an ally to this school also for very many years, and he will let you know about more of what he does with Indigenous peoples in his speech. So welcome, Moss.
Thank you so much, Cody. It's always pleasure to come and join this global school of leadership for Indigenous women. Mapia nga Aldao, Nikayuamin. I see that we have many colleagues from different parts of the world. It's lovely to see all of you. As Cody has mentioned, I work for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Myself, I'm an Ibanag from the northern region of the Philippines. So, Doris, kumusta? And then we have colleagues from Latin America. Buenos dias a todos. Our colleagues from Africa, those who speak French. Bonjour à toutes. So my work, I would like to basically share to you 2 or 3 things about my work and the importance of the work that we do at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and why Indigenous peoples, especially Indigenous women, should be a part of this work that we are doing, especially those processes and mechanisms that we are dealing with. I should tell you that there are 2 very important aspects of the work that I am doing that I would highly encourage you to take part, and not only to take part, but really to take advantage of it, because these are opportunities, that are there for Indigenous peoples. But most importantly, I would highlight this, that Indigenous women should be at the forefront of this. So I am coordinating our Indigenous Fellowship Program. It's been running for the past 20 plus years. And Winnie is a part of that. And we have had several other alumni of the Global School who have joined and participated in the fellowship program. In fact, it's now a part of our selection criteria that we give importance to female alumni or trainees that have gone through this school to our fellowship program when we are doing the review of candidates. And it's been an incredible source of pool of participants to our program. There is a complementary of what FEAM is doing and what we are doing in OHHR. The other mechanism that I would really like you to take seriously is the Indigenous Voluntary Fund, the UN Voluntary Fund for Indigenous Peoples. Throughout your training, you will realize that there's a lot of mechanisms, bodies, and processes, that specifically deal with Indigenous peoples or most relevant Indigenous peoples that you will be encouraged to learn first, and then to find out how these mechanisms are important for Indigenous peoples. But then later on, you would also realize that it takes time and resources, especially resources, for Indigenous women to participate in those processes. And as a follow-up to my sharing to you today, I will have a second installment of that specific under UN Voluntary Fund, so I can articulate and more specifically tell you how to best apply for the UN Voluntary Fund for Indigenous Peoples. So those are the 2 things. That's just my work. Now, I've been working for the United Nations for about 18 years now. And one thing that I have learned is that Indigenous peoples have shaped how the UN system in itself. In the past, when we talk about human rights, it's pretty much a very individualistic right. And this is 30 years ago. But with Indigenous people, it started to come to the UN, started to talk about their language, the community, the collectivity. that approach of looking at human right as an individual right has changed. And that is a very important contribution for Indigenous people. So keep coming in the international community. You don't know how much important the presence of Indigenous peoples in these spaces. You have to claim that space, because if you don't, somebody will. So make sure that you do that. Second, it is not enough. We have progress, of course, for the past 30 years. If you look back the historical development of Indigenous peoples in the UN, 90 years ago, we didn't exist. They wouldn't allow us to get inside the UN. And you will learn that later on when the other experts will come and tell you. And these spaces that we have now, after 70 years, 80 years, thanks to those who have paved the way for all of us to have this opportunity to even talk about Indigenous rights or Indigenous peoples. They have contributed by blood, by sweat, by time, for all of us, to be able to claim those rights. So in order to keep that momentum, we have to ensure that we also, those who are coming, the next generation of Indigenous leaders, especially Indigenous women, make sure that, that we are able to carry that, that the challenge and the contributions of the elders who have paved the way for us to be able, to come into these spaces. My last challenge to you is, it is not enough that you learn, but I think most importantly is that once you are able to deepen your understanding about this international system, human rights mechanisms, whether this is the Permanent Forum on Indigenous issues, the expert mechanism on the rights of Indigenous peoples, the Special Rapporteur, the UN treaty bodies, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, not until you actually bring those knowledge back home into your communities, to your organizations, to your people, they don't mean anything. So make sure that when you have that opportunity to learn, that you will be able to share that to others. That's what I said. Knowledge is power, not until you share it. And that's my biggest challenge to you. I won't wish you luck, because I don't believe in one. I believe in hard work. If you do that, you will go a long way. So I'm just saying hello to some of our colleagues here. I see Elsa. Thank you, Elsa, for the message. And I do look forward to come back and give you a deeper session on the treaty bodies. I'm sure that you have heard that CEDAW have recently developed a general recommendation, very specific to Indigenous women and children. So we will be looking at that and why the UN has to develop one. And thanks to FEMI, you should be thanking FEMI for leading that process. So, and we are aware of that even here in the UN. So again, Raming Salamat. Winnie, thank you. Over to you now.
Thank you so much, Mohsen. Thank you so much for the support, and we look forward to hearing more from you on the sessions that are yet to come. And yes, as Mos has said, it's always hard work, not just luck. Luck will help us, but hard work is what has gotten us to where we are now, and we continue to work hard to where we want to be as Indigenous women, as Indigenous people in this movement that we are in. And so next, I want to invite our Executive Director for FEMI, Teresa Zapeta, who is a Maya Kiche woman from Guatemala. She's the Executive Director of FEMI and has worked as a government officer, occupying the position of Indigenous Women's Advocate, and has been responsible for Indigenous Women Program for the Central American region at the UN Women She has been actively directing the works of FIMI and is a strong pillar of guidance, leadership of all its work. Through her work at FIMI, she aims in strengthening the network of all organizations and allies to continue articulating in a sustainable manner, influencing together with the advancement of the human rights of all Indigenous women in the world. She has been linked to the struggle of Indigenous women for over 15 years and continues in this space with conviction and vision. So welcome, Teresa, for this final part of our session today. And then right afterwards, she'll be able to introduce a very exciting session after her speech, which I will let her do afterwards. Thank you, Teresa, and welcome.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you. Voy a saludarles en mi idioma
Now I'm
materno.
going to greet you in my mother tongue.
Muchísimas gracias en mi idioma.
Thank you so much is what I said in my mother tongue, which is the Maya language. And I want to thank the universe for allowing us to meet again, for our paths to cross again, with new faces and with the partners and allies that we've had for a while now. And my dear older sister, Lucy, I think she already left for another commitment, but we respect her, we love her, and our Vice President of FIMI, and our dear Tarsila Rivera. She's not with us today, but she's the president of FIMI, but she will be able to join us at some point. One of the promoters, one of the supporters of especially Indigenous women's movement, that is Vicky Towley, John Carling, and a long list that I'm not going to go through right now, but we greet all of them and are thankful for their energy. And thank you for Professor Joseph's message, and our very, very dear friend and allied Professor Elsa. Thank you so much for your words. I wrote down everything: resistance, persistence, and we're going to add more to that list to continue in this path. These words give us depth. My dear Monica, I value so much that you've made time to be with us today and to bring to our agenda the subject of funding, which is very important. Our brother Morse, a great allied, a dear colleague, so close to all of FIMI's processes, especially with Indigenous women. I thank him too. And a special greeting to my very dear sister, Mavering, and my dear Yandi, and to Joy. They are three colleagues who have gone through the Global Leadership School. And I'm going to add Winnie Cody, who's now advisor in the school. They all have come through the global school, and today they're contributing, they're giving back, saying, I've been here listening, that the work continues in the community. Jandy, her message, the project that she mentioned, and Joy, who is today coordinating the 10th school since our coordinator, Cecilia Ramirez, cannot be with us. So if we look at everyone that has gone through the 10 editions, we're going to see that 90% of them are active locally, regionally, globally. So this is the heart of the school. And I mentioned that because sometimes in our struggles, we think that we're working, and it seems like the processes don't change, that life in our communities is hard. But if we don't look at the positive steps and the achievements that we've been making, gaining, we're not going to fill ourselves with that resistance, all of that we need to move forward. FIMI is so pleased to start again our school. This 10th edition, as we said, is a platform, it's a global mechanism born in 1995 just because there was that need to connect globally, that the Americas don't walk alone without knowing what's happening in Africa or in Asia or in the Pacific, and that the good experiences can be shared and we can learn from them so that we can support each other, go together to present our agenda at the UN, before a donors community, before the governments, so that we can do this as Indigenous women globally. We come from the same cloth, from the same material, with different colors. And if we all were to speak our mother tongues, we have such a beautiful array of diversity. If we could meet in person, we still have challenges for that. We could see the colorful clothes that we all wear. They're all different from Uganda, from North America, from Asia. And we would see all of that beauties, like the Sami peoples, etc. That diversity is what joins us, because unfortunately we have the same reality. We're people impacted by climate change, the reality of climate change and racism and discrimination, the lack of opportunities. And in the face of all of that, we need to be united. That's how FIMI was born. And it was born from that idea that we have to strengthen our abilities, complement our knowledge from our own leaderships. And that's how the leadership school was created. And the program for international advocacy on human rights. But then we said we need funds for this, and that's how the AINI fund was created. It's a Quechua word that means reciprocity. And then we realized that we need to do research and generate data. So we have another program called Research of Impactful Subjects, or the issues of impact. So we have all of these programs plus our own advocacy program. These 4 arms or legs support the same body, and that's how we walk together. So the participants, you who join us for this edition, are going to be able to interact and learn in these 4 areas, and to learn from our allies. I would say that you've taken your masterclass today, because to hear the contributions from everyone, the message from Professor Joseph, Professor Elsa, Jandy, Monica, Morse, it's a huge baggage of knowledge with issues that you can start learning from, you can start researching. And this is the first content you've put in your bag of knowledge. Then the Global School prepares to strengthen these leaderships in different ways. And we want to bring this to practice. So you're going to have the opportunity to write your own statements, positions, create an advocacy plan, which you will have to implement collectively in your communities. And from the AINI Fund, we're going to try to support you with funds for the majority of these plans. We're going to select the plans, those that we see the most commitment. We're not talking about who does the most beautiful plan or the best plan, but who really wants to have the responsibility, strong responsibility to implement it. So I invite you, as we did at the introduction meeting, that you take all of the words that you have heard today, you take them in, but also invite you to complement that knowledge, because the Leadership Global School comes from the idea that everyone contributes. No one has the absolute knowledge. Everyone contributes. One of you could say, "Oh, I come from this community, and I don't know anything about the UN." Well, you don't know the UN, but you have ancestral knowledge. You have the community knowledge, how to take care of the land, how to take care of a seed, how to organize. You have other knowledge that complements what you're going to receive here in terms of the mechanisms, international mechanisms. So I invite you to that reciprocity. I also want to add to the words that Professor Elsa gave us. I want to add gratitude to her list of words. It's so important that together with gratitude, we have the ability to recognize the contribution from others. We also want to be grateful to our families who are going to support us during this time, because the time that we're going to use for this training, for this learning, is complicated for women, especially doing it virtually. Access to technology sometimes is difficult. So we're grateful to our families and to the institution that gave us that letter of support to be here today, to those who have created the programs, to those who are going to come with us, to all of the presenters, because you're going to listen from many Indigenous women, some brothers, Indigenous brothers as well, and other guests from different organisms and bodies. So not only are you going to receive, you're also going to contribute with your questions, your experience, and your knowledge. That's what this is all about. That's how we grow. That's how we get stronger. Lastly, I'd like to invite you to collectivity. That means not remain at the individual level. That's how we start. That's true, but we need to move on to the collective level. So take advantage of this space, as Jandy said. It's a global platform from where we can connect to other regions, other experiences, other allies. And that's the point, to strengthen partnerships and alliances, and that at the end of this program, we can say, we have multiplied, we have more alliances and more knowledge, and in our advocacy as well. So we need to connect the local level to the global level and to the collective level and the community level. I'd like to add that one of the most important contents that you're going to receive and work with is the general recommendation number 39 of the CW, which was done last year by a group of Indigenous, with the advocacy of Indigenous women and many other groups. So I want to thank everyone for the time we're going to dedicate to this. Thank you to all of those who've been here today and to all of the participants and their organizations. Would like to close with a celebration, with music, to enjoy and give joy to our lives. We want to celebrate this opening of the cycle. And for that, I'm going to invite a group that is going to be with us virtually. I also invite you to open your cameras, because I'm sure that our colleagues are now wanted to take our usual pictures. So while I introduce the group, please open your cameras. So welcome to the Skayul Hulumalti group. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a group created by Juan Carlos Santis Mendez from Oshchuk, Chiapas, Mexico, from the Celtal town. He learned to play harp and local instruments, and then he shared his knowledge with children 6 to 10 years old. And then this year they created the Skayul Hulumalti group. So with this group, what we want to do is to promote the importance of traditional music, the Celtic their language. And with that, we welcome them. And that's how we will open up our 10th edition of the Indigenous Women Global Leadership School and their program together with the University of Columbia and the Secretariat of the Permanent Forum for Indigenous Issues, another important allied from the United States, from the United Nations. So welcome, and we're going to listen to you now, dear brothers and sisters.
Juan Carlos Santis Méndez, Hachimonta Oshchuk. De Oleja Bill, María Rolando Mules Chael, Pati de Cayo.
Das Bill de Kindig, Has Cayo Lumatic.
Qué belleza, gracias.
How beautiful. Thank you.
¿Otra melodía
Do you have another song to share with us today?
o con esta terminamos?
Or shall we finish with that one? Let us know.
Muchas gracias, queridos hermanos, querida
Thank you so much, dear brothers, dear young sister who's playing the instrument in the middle there. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. With this, we will then end our session with a big embrace for each one of you. May long live art, long live our spirit, and we'll continue seeing each other throughout the next weeks. Good day, good evening, good afternoon to all of you.
Bye, bye. Podemos decirnos adiós.
See you.
See you.
Hasta luego.
Hasta